Manuela.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am bringing this debate today because of the many fatalities on roads in the West Midlands and the catastrophic consequences of these collisions and crashes. In seconds, happy words are turned upside down, lives are destroyed, and families grieve their loved ones. My constituents are dying on the roads as a direct result of successive governments' inaction to tackle the scourge of speeding, of dangerous driving, and I intend to set out exactly what must change. Let me begin with an example that has stayed with me. On the 19th of May this year, a constituent contacted me to say that drivers on a road near them were regularly travelling at more than double the 30 miles per hour speed limit. They were frightened. They wanted something done. I wrote to the government to raise their concerns. The response I received was that the department was not currently considering any changes to the data used in assessing road safety interventions. And on that same day that the response arrived, there was a fatal accident on that road. And that was the third consecutive death on South Warwickshire roads in a few days. The government must change its approach to road safety and intervene to save lives on our roads. It also must safeguard and consider all users of roads, and any new measure must protect vulnerable users such as pedestrians, walkers, cyclists, roller skaters, and ensure that funding for active travel infrastructure is available to communities so that people can enjoy safe walking, cycling, or riding. Why is that the cycling infrastructure must cost millions of pounds? Why is it so difficult in Britain to have separate and well-marked cycle and active travel lanes? I really welcome the government's road safety strategy published in January. It is ambitious in its aim to cut the number of people killed or seriously injured on Britain's roads by 65% by 2035 and by 70% for children under 16. But a strategy without teeth is not a strategy at all. The government needs to commit to radical solutions. Tinkering at the edges is no longer sufficient. The scale of death and serious injury on our roads demands bold, evidence-based action, and it demands it now. What we need is national legislation that is properly enforceable, that sets clear thresholds for interventions on dangerous roads, and that does not leave communities at the mercy of local councils who are failing in their duty of care. Of course I will.
Thank you. I'm incredibly grateful to her for giving way. And while her debate is on road safety in the West Midlands, many of the lessons that she's talking about can apply nationwide, including in Leeds, South West and Morley. I wonder if she shares my frustration that some councils rely on mean average speed data to determine whether or not they're going to make adjustments on certain roads, despite the fact that, as a maths teacher, I really appreciate the mean, but it hides outliers. And if you have 100 outliers out of 10,000 cars, that still makes a dangerous road. Does she agree with me that councils should change their approach?
I thank the honourable member for his passionate intervention, and I fully agree with him, and I will talk a little bit about what's happening in Warwickshire, and I hope that Warwickshire colleagues will also intervene and actually share their experience, and I hope that the Minister will say something about guidance to local authorities so that they are not just reactive but actually proactive. Communities up and down the West Midlands want to see proper enforcement and a reduction of speed limits in residential areas, especially when schools are located. My constituency of Stratford-on-Avon is a case in point. We are left exposed by the reform-run Warwickshire County Council. Parish councils and community watch groups work hard to gather data, but it is incredibly difficult to implement any type of traffic calming measures and speed reduction orders. Often, even if these are agreed, the cost of these proposals falls on parish and town councils. The problem is felt with particular force in rural constituencies like mine. Speeding through villages, with pleasure.
Taylor. I thank the honourable member for giving way and for securing this really important debate. As a neighbour in Warwickshire, I share her concerns, and I've been out with my local speed watch groups in Wharton and in Water Orton. And my constituents in North Warwickshire and Bedworth are fed up with dangerous roads simply being ignored by the reform-led County Council in Warwickshire. From the Woodford Lane Junction, Grendon Road in Polesworth, No Man's Heath Lane in Ostry, Marston Lane in Bedworth, Kings Lane in Newton Regis to Coventry Road in Philongley. Speeding is just out of control, and the lack of speed cameras are putting lives at risk. Meanwhile, Reform's record on Warwick County Council shows that they're spending less money on our roads. Does the honourable member agree that communities like mine in Warwickshire deserve safer streets, investment in road infrastructure and actions on potholes from local government, not rhetoric about what information children can read in libraries or what flag can be flown from Shire Hall?
I thank the honourable member for her intervention, and I absolutely agree. I actually would like the County Council to focus on what really matters to our residents, not spending the first 6 months in power deciding which flag should fly on which flagpole or other culture wars policies. I actually received an email from a visitor to my constituency that actually hit a pothole which resulted, thankfully, not in a crash, but it could have been, not in a crash, but in his car being badly damaged. And now it's obviously is in conversation with the County Council. And, this is not good. It's not good for residents. It's not good for our local visitor economy. They need to get a grip on the state of the roads, which obviously contribute to the dangers of these roads. But in rural constituencies like mine, speeding through villages is the norm. Speed limits of 30 miles per hour mean very little when there is no enforcement to back them up. Our country lanes carry cars, lorries, farm vehicles as well, and cyclists. And collision black spots are all too common. Narrow roads prevent things like chicanes. And narrowings, we can't have those because obviously large farm vehicles need to use the road as well. And also street lights are an issue when we have many dark skies villages. But rural communities feel abandoned due to the lack of police officers, like the Honourable Lady has just mentioned, lack of power for local councils, and lack of attention from government. And I will focus on some locations in my constituency, but these are not exhaustive. They are rather illustrative of the road safety issues that we all have in the West Midlands. So one example I want to put on the record is the junction where the A422 Banbury Road meets the B4455 Fossway, just east of the village of Ettington. Every day, drivers, cyclists, bikers and farm workers navigate a junction that should never have been designed the way it was. I have been calling on the department to step in, engage with Warwickshire County Council and ensure this junction gets the full safety review and redesign it so urgently needs. People have already paid the price for the failure to act. But there are many other dangerous junctions in Oakley Road and Justin's Avenue off the Birmingham Road in Stratford-on-Avon, with residents reporting near misses and sadly crashes too. I have had meetings with National Highways about the Billesley Junction on the A46, and we are still waiting for improvements to this junction, where several fatalities have already happened. With pleasure.
I thank her for giving way, and likewise in Doncaster East and the Isle of Axholme, we have a very clear picture of where our hotspot areas are, and therefore she spoke earlier on about having teeth and the ability to proactively plan and work with councils, highways, to make sure that we actually tackle these, prevent accidents from happening before they occur. Does she agree with me that we need to use our road safety strategy to change the culture from being reactive to proactive and being preventative and save lives before people are harmed and hurt?
Yes. Manuela.
Thank you so much for his intervention. Yes, and really that is the kind of at the heart of this debate is actually changing that culture from local government to national government. And of course we need also, and I will say that a little bit about education and about behavioral change, but the culture needs to change. We need to be reactive because only then we save lives. We can be proactive. So, and one of the issues is actually speeding speeding episodes where schools are. The children of Mapleborough Green Primary School have written to me as they are experiencing fear and anxiety crossing and walking along a very busy road which is still 40 miles per hour. It's a primary school and we have 40 miles per hour outside the school. We are not getting any support in keeping these young children safe on their journey to school. And I'm not even going to touch about the air pollution as well that these children are experiencing. What does the minister say to these children? Constituents have also contacted me about speeding through the Stratford-on-Avon village on the A3400, making difficult for elderly residents to actually cross the road to go to the post office, to go to the shops, and for children again to go to school. So there is to be, as the honourable member mentioned, we need to have a shift from reactive to proactive enforcement, and that culture shift. We cannot keep waiting for collisions to occur and then investigating the wreckage. We cannot wait. Of course I will.
I'm very grateful to her for giving way, and may I congratulate her on securing this important debate. It's really striking how many of the issues that she describes ring true for city constituencies as well. In Birmingham, the number of collisions has actually fallen over the last decade, but the number of people killed or seriously injured on the roads has remained remarkably stable at around 500 a year, indicating that if you are unlucky enough to be in a smash, then the risk is actually greater. Many of our roads were not designed for the wider and heavier vehicles that are on them now. So does she agree that we need more adaptations to those historic roads and better and more up-to-date guidance on what interventions are effective in this age of wider and heavier vehicles?
Manuela.
I thank the honourable member for his intervention, and I fully agree with him with his points. I think we got an opportunity, a once-in-a-life opportunity with the National Road Strategy consultation and review to make those changes, to change that culture, to assess the situation and ensure that if we want to reduce deaths and serious injuries on our roads, we need to be bold and we need to make sure that local authorities will have better guidance, more bolder guidance to really for urban areas as well as intervene in rural areas. But for example, every time I ask for cameras, I'm told you have to have 5 fatalities. It was 1 fatality when I started campaigning for road safety in my village because I couldn't cross my road with my children and a little one by hand and the pram. So I started campaigning on road safety measures in my village, and I was told, you need to wait for 5 fatalities before a camera, AMPR cameras are installed. Yes, of course I will.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way, and she's making a very compelling speech, much of which resonates with my reflections as the MP for Rugby, and I'm dealing with constituents who are concerned about Junction 1 of the M6 and also the speed limit on the A426 into Rugby from that junction, which is currently 60, and residents and councillors are concerned about this. And does she agree with me that the government's, through the road safety strategy, new edition of the best practice on setting local speed limits can't come too quickly, because we need to ensure that residents and their elected representatives are empowered, and all too often the process seems almost resistant to those voices, and as she rightly says, all too often we need the evidence of injury and risk to come first, then it's often too late.
Thank you, and I thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention. Again, I fully agree. I think we have a real opportunity with this new national road safety strategy to ensure that we do reduce serious injuries and death on the roads. And I hope that the government takes into consideration our views, obviously, the consultation, responses, but really to ensure that the guidance is, is updated in a way that we are not waiting for, we're not acting after the fatality, because that's too late. That's too late for the families. That's too late for, the young drivers that might have crashed. It's lives destroyed. But also, we cannot have a speed reduction policy which is based on how fast cars would be traveling rather than the danger they pose to road users, including children walking to schools or elderly residents crossing the road to get to the post office or the shop or to their GP. We must identify the risks before lives are lost and intervene accordingly. That is the changing culture that my honourable friends were mentioning, and in policy that this government must now commit to. There must be culture change at council level as well, as currently it is a reactive culture where interventions are made only if a history or road traffic accidents and locations with recorded collisions, especially injury collisions, are prioritised. County highways often use as data the speed most drivers don't exceed to judge whether a road has a speeding problem. But interventions should not be based on how fast drivers are driving. We need a change too in the Department of Transport guidance, which also seems to reinforce a reactive behaviour, especially on speed limits, and I look forward to hearing from the Minister about that. A constituent in Stratford-on-Avon, one of my villages, told me recently, current analysis shows that 63% of cars exceed the speed limit through the village. I raised this situation with the local police force, who told me that 35 miles per hour is the enforceable limit. But why? The charity break say that a pedestrian hit at 30 miles per hour has a 1 in 5 chances of being killed. This rises to 1 in 3 if hit at 35 miles per hour. Children can be killed at 30 miles per hour. So, there is, why are we waiting to enforce at 35 miles per hour instead of 30 miles per hour? But, yes, of course I will.
I appreciate the honourable member for giving way. Just in terms of schools, it's not just about speeding, is it? One of the biggest issues we have is always parking outside schools, and we need to be able to find a way to help the schools have the ability to move parents on, or have other people that can come in, organisations or the police force or highways, to support them. We need to give them the teeth or the accountability to come in and support, because we are going to lose more children crossing roads in between parked cars if we don't do that.
Manuela.
I agree with the honourable member, and I was a school governor for many years, so I know Harriet teachers writing letters to parents to park considerately, to even the no idling their engines, because obviously that causes lots of issues with health and asthma and pollution. And you're right, we need, the gentleman is right, the honourable gentleman is right. We need to ensure that schools are also given the tools to be able to change behaviour. I often find that we can send as many letters as we want, but the thing that make parents and carers change their behaviour is the children themselves. When the children tell the parents, it's a walk to week school, and I want to walk, I want to feel proud, and I want to walk to school rather than drive, and they do that. And I think, sometimes the role of education is really important, and going to, even firefighters or policemen or local councillors going to speak to the children at school to see whether behavior can be changed from the ground up. But I also would like to mention the 20 miles per hour, because obviously it's something that are in Wales, the other nations are implementing, and I want to see whether there's any lessons that we can learn from them. But personally, I think that 20 miles per hour, because of all this data that we know how dangerous 30 miles per hour is, 20 miles per hour zones should be a standard on new residential developments. In one of the new developments in my constituency, in an urban area, the new road appears to link houses with a local school, but will be set at 50 miles per hour. Again, this was raised with Warwickshire County Council, and they just says it follows national guidelines, despite having a suite of active travel policies, and the fact that the road goes through a residential estate, and it's really difficult to make them review that mileage, especially because now we got so many new houses being built, and this road cannot be 15 miles per hour. So we really must ask our local highway authorities to do better. But let me turn to one of the groups we know who are most at risk. Young drivers between the ages of 17 and 24 account for just 6% of new driving licenses, but yet they are involved in 24% of fatal and serious collisions. Those are young people from constituencies like mine and across this house who never make it home. The evidence for what works is not hard to find. Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and every single state in the United States already operate some form of graduated licensing for new drivers. These schemes are sensible, are proportionate and evidence-based, and they include measures such as restrictions on nighttime driving, limits on carrying passengers, especially young passengers in the early months of a license, and probationary periods marked by visible plate. They save lives. We should be doing the same, and I urge the government to look at graduated licenses and perhaps bring forward proposals without further delay. The RAC as well believes a form of graduated driving for young drivers could help save lives on our country's roads. And I want to thank my constituents Robin and Patsy, who have been formidable campaigners for graduated licenses and road safety for young people since losing their child. But road safety isn't just about physical measures. It is also about changing driver behavior. Nationally, I want to highlight the work of Think, which has launched important and life-saving campaigns, from encouraging the use of seatbelts to tackling excessive speed, drink and drugs, and obviously very recently the use of mobile phones at the wheel. And these campaigns must continue, be properly resourced and funded, and reach every driver. The Warwickshire Road Safety Partnership holds an annual memorial service to remember the lives lost and injured on Warwickshire's roads, which I attended last year, and it was a somber event because we all knew all these deaths and injuries could have been prevented. The families of those killed on the roads of the West Midlands are not asking for the status quo. They are asking for change which will save lives. And so I'm asking the government today to deliver it. Thank you.